Here's your smart fact of the day. What is the placebo effect? The placebo effect demonstrates how positive thinking can improve treatment outcomes. The nocebo effect, on the other hand, suggests that negative thinking may have the opposite effect. A placebo, in simple terms, is something which is inactive or inert, but because of us giving it to some patient as a medicine, can act like an active drug because of the patient's mind, the brain of the patient that is interpreting the medicine as a drug. Hello and welcome to Smarter With Sid, and in today's episode, what we are going to do is study the action of a placebo in the field of marketing and understand whether there is something called placebo marketing. So let's go. Seth Godin had written a book called All Marketers Are Liars, and he'd scratched the "are liars" part, and "tell stories" was the end of that book title. It's a very interesting book. It actually talks of the placebo effect, because essentially a placebo is a lie, isn't it? It is an untruth. It is sort of a fake, sort of piece of information you're giving to your customers, but you're making them buy it, and people are buying it in more than one sense of the term, right? So is there any reason why when I'm faking it with a customer, promising something which is not there intrinsically in the product, but it's still working? Number one, does it really happen? Number two, why does it happen if it really happens? And number three, is it ethical, right? And number four, can it backfire? And what's the best case scenario? I could go on and on. But the context is essentially to study the action of a placebo, which is clearly a thing in science and in, whenever you're testing some drug out or whatever, and figure out whether it has an application in the field of marketing. So here's an example or two first to actually talk about how real the placebo effect in marketing is. Number one, wine tastes better if the glass is expensive. Like the glass that holds the wine, that's expensive. And even if you pour cheap wine in it, wine is going to taste better for the consumer, because the expectation that the consumer has from that piece of glass or from that piece of cutlery is something else. So that is one example. Second example, again, of wine. Strangely, wine which is expensive tastes better than inexpensive wine if the customer knows that he is drinking or she is drinking inexpensive or expensive wine. The expectation, again, the keyword expectation, leads to a belief in the customer's mind that an expensive wine has to be better and a non-expensive wine has to taste shabbier, essentially. From wine, let's go to some other drinks. Let's go to some energy drinks. A perfect example is of an energy drink which is sold at an offer or a discount suddenly is perceived to be effective effective than a drink which is being sold at a premium, and that's why sales don't happen for an energy drink that has been offered on a discount. Isn't that strange? You can look at a variety of influencers and their effect on just loving a piece of clothing that they're wearing and the rest of it. It falls in the believable category, and expectations of the influencers' followers are suddenly going to go through the roof. So the placebo effect you can see even in luxury items and items that influencers are showcasing. Mind you, may not necessarily work with a celebrity as much as it does with an influencer. Why? Now this part is nuanced. With a celebrity, with somebody like, say, Amitabh Bachchan or somebody, he is selling everything from Parker pens to, the state of Gujarat and whatever. People have a certain way of looking at that piece of advertising, and they don't confuse the fact that they understand that Amitabh Bachchan is going to just be a spokesperson, but it's an ad. But if an influencer does it, the effect is magical. It's somewhat different from what a celebrity does, because the influencer doing it, because the influencer is relatable and it comes across as if the influencer is not really advertising but endorsing something, it then has that shiny new placebo effect. Isn't it interesting? So it's not just wine, or it's just not energy drinks. It can go to luxury items. It can go to, any brand, to be honest, any brand that is building a story. Now, you might argue that isn't all of marketing actually building stories. And I would agree with you. So then is all of marketing placebo driven marketing? Now, here's the difference that I would like to state. There are some intrinsic benefits that are there within a product. Like, for example, when you're buying a certain life insurance, you know what you're getting. Or there can be a certain amount of food that you're buying or groceries that you're buying. And those are intrinsic things. Now, they can be enhanced by the placebo effect, but there is an intrinsic or core value that already is there, whether or not the placebo effect is impacting them. However, if you look at a company like Apple and what Apple does in terms of building that immense story around its own brands, doesn't mean that the intrinsic value to Apple is lost anywhere. It is just basically enhanced by the placebo effect. And you suddenly feel different when you are going to step into an Apple store and look at their products, because you suddenly feel slightly posh. Now, you might have the same feeling about drinking a cup of coffee when you step inside a Starbucks, right? You might have the same feeling when you step inside a different really high five-star restaurant or a hotel. You're going to have that, or maybe even a Michelin star thing. Yeah. The belief is that there are certain expectations that this place has of you. Now, mind you, if the expectations are too bad, so you can't sell really bad vinegar as really great wine, but if it's somewhere in the ballpark, your placebo effect is going to become stronger. And you know what makes the placebo effect work even stronger for most brands or most pieces of marketing is if you got some believers, early adopters and innovators who are true believers of your product. Now, eventually, the placebo is a story. Something is going to work in magical ways that is going to change your life, which goes beyond the intrinsic value of the product. So the placebo is a story. Brand building is a story. All marketers are storytellers. They are, not liars, but storytellers. So when you are looking at something like that, building up for your brand, you suddenly understand how a placebo effect works. And it works really well when you got innovators and early adopters who are believers in your product or service, who are going to spread the story for you. Because a placebo effect becomes even stronger when the marketer does not sell, but it's only the customer who's selling it to other customers. Isn't that interesting? So essentially, put it in a nutshell, a placebo effect in marketing is there across. It is there across. It can get enhanced, especially in certain conditions when the early adopters and innovators can make it work. Now, is it ethical? I think it is ethical if you can make somebody believe in the goodness, which has a little magical origin. If that magical origin actually becomes true, so I am taking a painkiller, which is a placebo, and it suddenly helps me, reduce my pain or get rid of my pain. When the placebo has done its magic then. Now, if the same case applies in marketing, well, you will have a certain effect that is good for you. However, that thin line, that ethical line has to be traversed by each and every marketer for herself. You cannot have a generic formula towards what is acceptable and what is not in placebo-driven marketing, which essentially is, to my mind at least, all of marketing. Right? Now, if I look at placebo-driven instances, I'll give you a small instance to close this one out. The smaller the pill, which is a placebo, the stronger the impact it is. And if the pill is bitter, it actually has a better impact rather than a sweet tasting pill. Because you expect medicine to be bitter, isn't it? You expect the pill to be small and potent rather than large and, not looking like a medicine. Our minds are strange, our minds are unique, and placebos and placebo-driven marketing can be utilized splendidly for ensuring that we succeed in marketing. I hope you like this episode of Smarter with Sid. Many more to come from where this one came from. And if you like this episode and this podcast, do like and subscribe to it. It will help us a lot. And if you like me, I'm the Traveling Professor. Follow me on LinkedIn and on Instagram, wherein I will sell you more placebo-driven stuff. And if you like stuff like this, just go in for whatever IVM's got in store for you. On that happy note.